This is Legal Eagle's take on what happened to Senator Padilla. We obviously were watching the Kristi Noem press conference while she was in the middle of her press conference, and Padilla interrupted the event to demand his right to ask a question, even though the Q&A segment hadn't begun yet. I'm curious to see what the Legal Eagle POV is, given that they have been quite critical of the Trump administration on some legal policy, as well as tariffs. And it'll be interesting to see their take here. So let's take a quick listen here.
A sitting U.S. senator, and that's maybe not even the worst part about this. Kristi Noem, the Secretary of Homeland Security, just said the quiet part out loud, and that's not getting quite as much attention. Because at a federal press conference in Los Angeles, Kristi Noem stood behind a podium flanked by uniformed officers and declared that the military is in California to liberate it from its own elected leader.
Right. It was right after that comment on liberation that this happened, where basically, Padilla is pushed out. He's identifying himself as a senator. He's clearly getting escorted out by security services who end up in the hallway asking him to essentially get on the floor and put his hands behind his back, where he's detained and then obviously later released. Now, Padilla was appointed by Newsom to replace Kamala Harris's seat when she became the vice president. All right, let's get to the real commentary here.
Proposals and has oversight over federal agencies with citizenship, asylum, refugee, and immigration. Question clearly identifying himself.
I'm Senator Alex Padilla.
Did not touch or strike the officers. But here's how the Department of Homeland Security characterized what you just saw with your own eyes. Quote, Senator Padilla chose disrespectful political theater and interrupted a live press conference without identifying himself or having his Senate.
Okay, so far that's true, right? That was disrespectful political theater, true. Interrupted a live press conference, true. Without identifying himself. He did identify himself, I'll give that. And I don't know that he lunged towards her, but he was definitely trying to push against the guards. So I could see the argument on lunge.
And a security pin on as he lunged toward.
And mind you, he didn't identify himself until after he was already being constrained, right? If he announced like, Senator Padilla here, I have a question, I doubt he would get pushed out like this. So I think it was the combination of him demanding to ask a question and pushing forward that led to his removal. So,
Secretary Noem. Mr. Padilla was told repeatedly to back away and did not comply with officers' repeated commands. Secret Service thought he was an attacker and officers acted appropriately. Secretary Noem met with Senator Padilla after and held a 15-minute meeting. So let's unpack that. Do the facts
oh, that's nice. I didn't know that they held a meeting afterwards.
Stated by this government account match what you just saw on video?
I would say mostly, yes, but Legal Eagle doesn't really like the Trump administration, so.
Say he did not identify himself, yet he clearly said, quote, I'm Senator Alex Padilla. I have questions.
Yeah, but I mean, this is misleading, Legal Eagle. I'm actually really disappointed about that, because if we go to, let's go to the raw footage of the Padilla rush, because when you look at the Padilla rush, he comes in, starts trying to ask a question. It's only when he gets pushed back that he says, oh, I'm Senator Padilla, and you can't actually hear it that well. Let's see. Imagine you're at the press, the podium or whatever. Let's see.
I'm Senator Alex Padilla. I have questions for...
See, he doesn't identify himself until he's already being body blocked and pushed back. So it's a little too late to say, oh, I identified myself.
I'm Senator Alex Padilla.
It's too late. You're not standing like, hey, I'm Senator, I have a question. You're identifying yourself after you're getting body blocked and pushed back. That's, I don't know, Legal Eagle, that's weak, man.
Questions for the secretary, so that part is clearly a lie. Now, you would expect the Secretary of DHS to know who Alex Padilla is, since she is conducting law enforcement operations in his particular state. Moreover, Senator Padilla is the top Democrat on the subcommittee on immigration, and Noem has met...
Right. Mind you, we saw this live. And when we covered this Padilla charge live, the initial sound, like nobody knew what happened initially. When this initial sort of rush happened, people thought this was an attacker, some form of a troll. Nobody really knew what was going on. You had a situation where, Kristi Noem's in the middle of talking, and then all of a sudden, here, a longer footage here, and all of a sudden there's just this noise and ruckus off to the side, which is scary if somebody's in the middle of a press conference.
Secretary, I want to know why you insist
so I want to say thank you to every single person that has been able to do this.
Hands up, hands up.
Also, I want to talk
Senator Alex Padilla. I have...
See how late it is? for him to identify himself, it takes like 11 seconds. And you see this person overside, like, what are you doing? Don't come up here. And this guy grabs him from behind, like, hold on there, buddy, hold on. This is not the time for questions. I don't know. Legal Eagle, I'm losing a little bit of respect here.
With that committee several times now, but they eventually dropped the charges against him because he did not do what they alleged.
I don't even know that they actually pressed charges. I didn't hear that they pressed charges, but maybe they did. I would imagine this wouldn't go anywhere because Democrats would obviously use that for political theater. Oh, they charged me. It's much easier to just pretend this didn't happen and let this go away. And it's kind of embarrassing for Padilla, but okay.
And that was also confirmed by video. But I think George Orwell might have something to say about that. But DHS said Senator Padilla wasn't wearing his Senate security pin, making it hard for them to know who he was. But DHS also accused Padilla of lunging.
Somebody in the chat here says he didn't rush anyone, they rushed him. The point is, if somebody's in the middle of giving a speech and you breach the line of where reporters are and you're asking in a non-Q&A question, you start shouting and making noise, and then somebody moves you out of the way, obviously forcefully, and you're body checking them and trying to fight back, people don't know what your problem is.
At Nome, as in physically threatening her. No,
I agree, it was a stunt. Totally a stunt.
I certainly don't see Padilla lunging at Nome in either of the two videos. And they said that they thought...
I mean, he's pushing against resisting officers. That's what he's doing the whole way. He's pushing away. I agree it wouldn't be considered a lunge forward, but he's definitely putting a lot of pressure against these people trying to push him away. I don't know.
Tried to assault Nome, then he would have been wrong. But obviously that's not what the video shows. We also don't have video showing when Padilla entered the room, but I think that we can assume from the tone of his voice where he identifies himself as Senator Padilla that he probably wasn't particularly aggressive as he walked into the door. But it looks like when they dragged Padilla out of the room, Nome's voice was calm, she did not acknowledge him, and her posture didn't change. So common sense and our eyes probably don't support the assertion that he looked like an attacker. Padilla was in a room of heavily armed...
That's potentially fair. I could give Legal Eagle that. It's just interruptive.
Voice as angry, but did anything about his body language indicate that he was trying to assault her? Probably not. In fact, the other people on the podium didn't even react to Padilla or move to defend Nome. And yes...
Well, they actually did to some extent. I mean, we saw that here in this footage where we saw this individual at the front. Hey, she's in the middle of talking. Stop. You can see here, it does look like he's standing here. He's got his, he's just standing there at this point. And this is where he gets removed. I think this is where they get the idea of a lunge, is him trying to like push his weight back. See that right there?
Been able to do that.
That's, this is, come on. He obviously doesn't want to be removed. So I don't know. This whole thing to me is just like a ridiculous stunt. I think it's a little rich for Legal Eagle to defend this, because this is kind of lame.
To add further insult to injury, they're saying that you are not allowed to record this horrible event.
There's no recording loud.
With the
How many?
to be in the other, any commands are on one of the plainclothes officers while they're dragging him backwards. He does not appear to be trying to move forward. It's possible that he's trying to stay on his feet though, so I'd say it still doesn't qualify as resisting. And here's another view of it. This video is from a Padilla staffer.
Come on.
I'm Senator.
He's obviously trying to stay in the room.
Alex Padilla. I have questions for...
Look at that. That's a push forward. You see that? That's the push forward. What are you smoking, Legal Eagle? That's like that football stance push forward.
From a Padilla staffer.
Watch it.
I'm Senator Alex Padilla.
Back.
I have questions for the
Forward.
Secretary, because the fact of the matter is...
You can't call that not resisting. Come on, man. He's obviously being directed by law enforcement to leave, and he is pushing in the opposite direction. That's like the definition of resisting. What are you smoking, Legal Eagle? You're the attorney and you missed that?
A dozen violent criminals that you're rotating on your...
Come on.
When they get him into
He's
the other room,
obviously, look at that. He was trying to grab the door to stay in there. He's literally trying to grab the door. Now, he fails because the door isn't in its latched position. But he tries to grab the door to stay in the room.
When they get him in...
Unfortunately for him, the door swings open. I think that's his hand. I can't tell if that's his hand.
When they get him into the other room, the officers, including some wearing uniforms, start grabbing his arms, and one appears to be pulling him to the left, another to the right, and a third officer is shoving him in back, moving him.
The officers don't look like I mean, like, they're doing their job. They're removing a disruptor.
Forward. And when law enforcement officers start to restrain or arrest someone, the person they're arresting rarely has the ability to stand completely still or lay completely still. In fact, it's often that police give contradictory.
Oh my gosh, shut up, dude. This is really disappointing. Oh, when you're being arrested, it's hard for people to lay completely still. I've literally put handcuffs on people myself as a law enforcement explorer 3 years on the road. This is bullcrap. Total bullcrap. You could absolutely be chill and relaxed and get handcuffs put on you.
Put your hands behind your back, but they're restraining your arms and hands. Just a simple act of moving your arms to comply can make it appear as if you're resisting. And it happens all the person.
This is cope. This is ridiculous. This is very disappointing from Legal Eagle. I'm kind of grossed out by it. I'm done watching the Legal Eagle, at least that video clip. That was lame.